I just finished the script and I was like, Isis, you might as well just film it now. I also got a new mic. ASMR. Headband, Grace Ellier. Earrings that are way too big for my head and my neck from the new Bamboo. I can't pronounce her actual name. She's amazing though. Everything else is pretty much Old Navy. Hi everybody, my name is Isis and this... Hello! My name is Isis and this is Isis Says Hi. I like to make a lot of research videos about topics that matter to me and sometimes a vlog or just make really random rambles. So, as you can tell by the title, today we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships. I'm sure people have made videos like it in the past, so I'm probably not going to be harping anything new, but just doing it in a way that's more Isis and not whoever made those videos. And as always, all of my references or sources that I use will always be listed down below. The parasocial relationship is also known as a parasocial interaction, and those are kind of two different but the same things. But it's a one-sided relationship between media figures or people you might admire and non-celebrities. So us, people who might not be in the spotlight like they are. In this type of relationship, the non-celebrity, or the person who's doing the admiring, is an individual who gives more time and energy into the relationship. The non-celebrity will feel a personal one-on-one connection with the celebrity, while that celebrity or the person being admired, at this point, just assume that they are one and the same, or media figure, whichever one I use, they're all pretty much the same thing as far as this video is going to be. So the celebrity will usually be really unaware of the relationship that the non-celebrity holds with them. This particularly has become really true during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're all in quarantine, we all can't really go anywhere, so we might turn to some of our favorite celebrities and the content that they're making. Whatever kind of form of content, social media content you consume, we might be looking to them a little bit more for either upliftment or to just not feel as alone, because quarantine was really lonely. The non-celebrity, or just the person who's doing the admiring, again, take those as the same terms, is going to do a whole bunch of what they can to learn about their favorite celebrity, their likes, dislikes, birthdays, sometimes to the point where it can be a little bit obsessive. I've been there, don't worry. While on the other hand, the person who is the celebrity or the person being admired does absolutely none of these things. And the biggest reason is just because they don't know the person. A lot of folks have described these relationships to be as strong as their relationship with their parent, sometimes as strong as the relationship with their neighbor, or as strong as their relationship with their best friend. There's so many different kinds of interactions in parasocial relationships, and they all serve different kinds of functions throughout life. A lot of studies for parasocial relationships have to be done within like a lifespan, just because the way that we look at parasocial relationships change throughout our lives. Parasocial contact can be put into 3 tiers that have varying intensity. So you have parasocial interactions, which is pretty much the lightest of the parasocials, and it can occur while you are physically consuming any kind of media that has that celebrity or media figure, and you kind of feel a little bit emotionally invested in it, or maybe you have an impression of the person based off of what you're seeing from that media. So it can look like maybe you screaming at a character to not go in a dark, weird, creepy cellar. Maybe you're shouting at a football player when they fumble, and that's a one-way interaction. You are watching this piece of media, you have the reactions that you have, but when that piece of media is done, so is that parasocial interaction. Parasocial relationships, they form when you continue to think about the celebrity in question when you're done with the piece of media that you just watched. During the height of the Twilight series, for example, teens and college students expressed having parasocial relationships with Taylor Lautner, I like to call him Spicy White, and his character Jacob Black, even sometimes referring to the two interchangeably like they're the same person and not like one is fictional and one is an actual person. Now you're thinking that this person that is acting this character is also that person just in general, and that's not true. You have to really remind yourself that these people are acting a role. The same way you have to remind yourself that these content creators, you do not know them in real life, you just know a part of them. And And it's really, really difficult to remember that because they do their job really well. So people can become really deeply and emotionally invested in parasocial relationships. In the 1950s is when it was first coined by Horton and Wall. It was first described from the perspective of media and communication studies, and then it kind of became a bit more social sciencey, so psychology, sociology, stuff like that. But Horton and Wall explored the different interactions between mass media users and media figures and determined the existence of a parasocial relationship. For example, Horton and Wall based a good chunk of their research off of a nightly broadcast called The Lonesome Gal. It was a nightly broadcast from a girl who didn't have a name or history, and I believe they didn't ever see her face, which I'm happy about that. But she spoke in a quote-unquote throaty, smug voice at the lover listening on at the other end. The Lonesome Gal was flooded with thousands of letters offering marriage, the writers respectfully assuring her that she was indeed the woman that they were looking for. Horton and Wall suggested that for most people, parasocial interactions or relationships match their current social interactions, while also suggesting that there are some individuals exhibit extreme parasociality, or they substitute parasocial interactions for actual social interactions. This was later denied by Person Rubin in about 1989, who found in their studies that parasocial interactions occurred just naturally as a result of spending a lot of time watching a celebrity or a media figure or reading, which makes sense. If you keep watching the same piece of media or reading it or listening to it, you're going to grow attached to those figures. A lot of people kind of try to figure out how parasocial interaction or PSI and parasocial relationships or PSR kind of happen. Some people say that you can immediately go into a PSR, which is a parasocial relationship, or you go into a PSI first, parasocial interaction, and then the PSR. It just truly depends. A lot of people look at attachment theory and what that looks like with parasocials. Of course, those who have a more secure, healthy attachment might not have a lot of parasocial relationships, or just really only have parasocial interactions compared to those who might be anxious or anxious ambivalent, which is pretty much the opposite of the attachment style chain. So they might have more parasocial relationships. So we talked about parasocial relationships, right? You have gone past just watching this character this one time in a show or a movie. Now you're also looking up anything you can about them and like watching, maybe reading any of the things that they've been involved in. A lot of the time, what many non-celebrities or people who are doing the admiring end up doing is that they hold these media figures and put them onto a pedestal. Another downside is that there is a chance that the non-celebrity could forget that the relationship that they have with that celebrity is one-sided. While parasocial relationships can produce some of the same benefits of real relationships, ultimately they cannot replace real-life ones. By relying on one-sided interactions, a person could be creating and rehearsing unrealistic scripts of how relationships are actually handled in real life. Those parasocial relationships are ready targets for companies looking to hook consumers. Now this parasocial relationship is not only a consequence on the non-celebrity, the person doing the admiring. Now it's also a consequence on the media figure. They might use this parasocial relationship for their financial gain in a way that is unhealthy and inauthentic. Or, as I've heard, and I'm sure you've heard as well, they might use this parasocial relationship as a way to be predatory to their fans. But again, most parasocial relationships are very much completely harmless, and it's really just the equivalent of caring a bit too much, I guess, about your celebrity figure or media figure. The ones that get the most attention, of course, are the ones where it's an extreme parasocial relationship, cross a line into stalking or other threatening behavior. So one example is in 1981, John Hinckley Jr. believed he was in a relationship with Jodie Foster and thought by shooting Ronald Reagan he could get her attention. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity, which is a little bit shocking that you could get away with shooting a president and be fine. Margaret Mary Ray suffered from schizophrenia and believed she was married to David Letterman and was arrested 8 times for trespassing on the television host's property and stealing his Porsche. She was convicted of stalking and spent much of her sentence in a psychiatric hospital. I wonder what the difference between John Hinckley and Margaret Mary Ray would be, besides assuming by their names the gender, him being found not guilty and her being found guilty, which I also kind of get because she has priors. Anyways, a lot of parasocial relationships though can sometimes go into comparing yourself to a celebrity, especially when you are in your adolescent years. So a lot of trigger warnings for self-harming, eating disorders, and body dysmorphia. The first one is body image. A study was conducted to examine the relationship between media exposure and adolescents' body image. Researchers looked at parasocial relationships and the different motivations for self-comparison with a character. The study surveyed 391 7th and 8th graders and found that media exposure negatively predicted body image. So not good. So in addition to that negative impact, the study indicated that parasocial relationships with favorite characters, motivations to self-compare, and engagement in social comparison with characters amplified the negative effects on kids' body images. These teens were comparing themselves to these characters and thinking that they kind of weren't enough and thinking that they might have had to look like those characters that they saw on the screen. A lot of shows that are based off of high school or middle school, a lot of the time they're hiring actors who are older so that they can play the parts and get away with more in terms of working hours and certain scenes. And so of course, you know, not every kid knows that or realizes that, or they might know it in the back of their head but not really think about it in that way. So of course they're going to compare themselves and their bodies to the people who are on the screen. This is a big reason of why representation in a lot of these shows are important, but also being realistic in these shows. There's also the famous mukbangs, short for the muk noon bang song, mukbang. So short for the muk noon bang song, which is Korean for eating broadcast. I know I did that wrong and I'm so sorry. And it's essentially social eating. I'm sure we've all seen mukbangs. And it started in South Korea in 2014 and took off internationally. Usually mukbangs, hosts would eat a lot of food while talking to their viewers. For the viewers, mukbangs add a social element, especially since about 46% of all eating and drinking happens alone. Mukbangs allow busy or lonely people to feel more connected, like they're sharing a meal with another person. Mukbangs can have a darker side. Some viewers have admitted to watching the videos to cope with their unhealthy eating patterns so they can indulge on their impulses while also sticking to their diets. To a lot of nutritionists, that sounds harmful because you're relying on these content creators and their mukbangs to manage serious psychological issues, and that is far from a healthy coping mechanism. The same kind of reason if a person is depressed or anxious and they're watching their favorite media figures to kind of ease themselves of that, more likely you should be talking to a professional about these issues and not just consuming content made from somebody because of how they make you feel. There's also worries from the same nutritionists about what these mukbangs might be doing to the hosts. The next is the reply guys. The reply guy is a term that was popularized by Chloe Bryan in 2019, and these reply guys believe that they have some form of connection with the women that they follow. So in turn, these women must welcome the commentary that they give them, and that includes unsolicited advice and their regular presence on their content. Though the reply guy might not mean any offense and doesn't intend to cause harm, his mere presence can suffocate the woman that they are replying to. This can be particularly seen with Black women on social media because they're amplified by legacies of racism and exploitation and sexism, with people asking invasive questions, offering unsolicited medical advice when it isn't requested, and treating Black women that they follow as maybe teachers or students. The next one is a parasocial breakup. Other research has begun to focus on what happens when a parasocial relationship is dissolved, and this is called the parasocial breakup. Eval and Cohen describe this as a situation where a character with whom a viewer has developed a PSR or parasocial relationship with goes off the air. This distress that media consumers experience after a parasocial breakup is like that of a social relationship. I can name a couple, specifically one famous, no longer I guess YouTuber, who I saw a lot of parasocial breakup, and because of the parasocial breakup I saw a lot of toxicity when they left. Of course, there are always some benefits to parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are important to viewers and in many ways advantageous because of the support that the viewer gains from that relationship. Many seriously ill people find afternoons with Oprah or Ellen the one chance in the day to see a friend without stress and gain strength from their relationships with them. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I developed parasocial relationships in my adolescence. Your girl was going through a lot. To have certain media figures that I could just turn to during those times was really helpful. Despite the stigma that some hold over parasocial relationships, these relationships are an important and normal aspect to life, especially to those who are adolescents. And this leads to the next point. Parasocial relationships and interactions are best explored across a lifespan, usually from probably adult and up. You know, now you understand yourself a bit more and your identity. You're going to look to these relationships just as a way to maybe cure a bit of the loneliness. You use these as a way just because you're a fan and you just want to support this person maybe. Compared to when you're a child, it's more to learn about your body image, learn about your identity, learn about behavior, maybe just to learn and educate yourself academically. That's usually how it starts, and then it does evolve as you get older. So studies have shown that children who connect with Elmo can learn more from the puppet than other characters, for example. That was totally me. There's a baby picture of me, I believe, of me sleeping in my bed with my Elmo plushie toy. I was a baby, of course. And I had this big Elmo thing that I think mom got me because I love Elmo. I was obsessed with Elmo. I definitely know that a lot of what I learned when I was a kid was from these kinds of characters like Elmo or Dora. Dora or Elmo. They were my ride or dies. I don't know if I finished that story, but there is a picture of me sleeping with my Elmo. I'm like this small baby and this big Elmo in my crib. Anyways. Parasocial interactions are also appealing to adolescents during identity formation, so when they're creating their identity, because these relationships provide figures that the adolescent can imagine total acceptance from, and the lack of actual contact with these figures can offer social interactions without the risk of being rejected or feeling unworthy, as we usually do when we're adolescents, unfortunately. One cannot know everything about a media figure or icon, and this is kind of what allows a lot of adolescents to kind of create these kinds of qualities onto media figures to meet their own specific wants and needs. There are other benefits as well. Parasocial relationships can help folks improve their social interaction skills. One of the most common arguments being made over this type of relationship is that they allow for social avoidance, but a person could engage in many forms of social interaction based on the common interest in this media figure. And that's kind of true. I made some of my closest friends because we loved certain celebrities or YouTubers, and I think that's why me and my friends are so close to each other. So there's so many examples of this. Maybe you like fan fiction or just a fandom situation. A lot of non-celebrities will join a fandom. Oh, I'm a fan of this character. Oh, there's this whole club for this character. I'm gonna join. They end up interacting with other people who are also fans of this character and become friends, and that's really cool. Additionally, some viewers perceive these personas as helping to significantly shape their own identity, just like how adolescents would use these figures. And one study of parasocial relationships and self-esteem found that one-sided relationships encourage people with low self-esteem to be more goal-oriented and comfortable in their skin, which is really cool. Everyone forms varying degrees of parasocial relationships, and they're not always harmful or negative, which is the biggest point. Sometimes parasocial relationships can be rewarding, allowing fans to form a lot of amazing relationships with public figures that can contribute really well to their well-being and encourage them to participate in acts of charity and community building. Not necessarily. It becomes bad when you get to the level of obsessive with a celebrity. So much so that you feel that you're entitled to their being, to their creative content, to what they do. That's when it gets bad. Parasocial relationships can be quite dangerous for famous folks. It can cause fans to just kind of invade a lot of their privacy and their space to hunt them down and meet them, right? You hear a lot of social media celebrities particularly talking about how sometimes they have fans coming up to their door, ringing their doorbell, trying to say hello. Every single time I hear stories about parents driving their kids to these people's houses or ringing the doorbell on behalf of their child and trying to get the celebrity or media figure to do something with their child. Personally, we can go outside and scrap on my block. I'm not going to tell you where I live, but we can do it, because that's insane. You are the adult. You have a responsibility to tell your child, hey girl, boy, kid, gender neutral, this is getting out of hand. Let's chill out. And I get it, you know, it might get your kid off your back for a little bit, but that's not good or healthy at all. Moving on. When you only see the positive traits of someone, it's easy to start to perceive them as flawless and infallible. As a result, whenever an influencer is called out for something problematic, their more devoted fans jump to their defense and make excuses on their behalf, even when the criticism is warranted. It's not hard to believe that you probably really know someone because you spent a lot of time watching their interviews, listening to it, reading about them, but we really have to remind ourselves that we don't know them in real life, right? We're not getting that two-way connection. We don't go out for coffee with them every week. We are just getting a part of themselves. We're not getting their full, real self. How do you know if you're participating in an unhealthy parasocial relationship? Or at least how do you know if it's getting obsessive? Only you can know whether you feel more connected than normal to someone you don't know. Asking yourself questions that define your level of perceived intimacy with a media persona or a figure can help you decipher whether it's bordering on unhealthy. This is from one of the articles that I picked up. It is on metro.co.uk. When I asked this aloud to myself, I was a little shook. I thought more of past me because present me doesn't do this as much. So if you're saying yes to a lot of these questions, you should probably step back from following that figure that you constantly watch and maybe contact a therapist to work through those kinds of feelings. Let's go through the questions. Do you regularly check a media personality's social media profiles? Do you feel like you and this celebrity are soulmates? Do you feel like you can trust this celebrity? Do you ever feel like you know them? Do you send messages to the person you're a fan of? Do you spend a lot of money on merchandise or products they recommend? Do you spend a significant part of your media viewing time on this person's pages or in communities related to them? Do you feel like if you met, your feelings may be reciprocated? Have you tried to meet them to make this happen? Would you say you worship them? Have you found that your feelings for them are stronger than what you feel for people you know in real life? Have you changed aspects of your lifestyle to mirror theirs? Do you ever feel as if they're directly talking to you? Have you neglected real-life relationships in favor of being a fan of this person? It's important to keep an eye on any concerning behavior or feelings and understand that parasocial relationships cannot replace genuine in-person relationships. So what should we take from this video? Parasocial relationships are a normal part of life, especially when considering the digital age that we're in. These relationships can help impact our lives for the better, and we have a lot of examples of this. They also provide comfortable and easy access to social interactions and allow for companionship and intimacy to occur. Even though there are downsides to this type of relationship, the benefits that come with them, like helping with our psychological survival, hold more value. When you're so used to seeing an influencer's bedroom on Instagram and reading about their mental health on Twitter, it's easy to see how left unchecked, a parasocial relationship might make you feel as though you know someone. This entitled dynamic gets more complicated when revelations emerge that contradict who you thought you were following. It can feel like a betrayal. When it comes to parasocial relationships with real people, no amount of projection is going to elevate them beyond the messiness of human existence. If we become better at recognizing this, we can find a way to accept that person as just another individual who's often doing their best and realize that we are not entitled to every intricacy of their life. We also learned that media figures can profit from parasocial relationships just as much, and sometimes monetarily, but other times media figures can form a more intimate connection with their fans, sometimes boosting their own emotional well-being. And there's a level to this as well. Because of this, we all really have to make sure to set boundaries. On the celebrity side, making sure that we're setting boundaries by not letting people into so much of our personal lives, and of course, making sure that we're not being predatory. Both sides, we have to make sure that we're not taking advantage of these parasocial relationships that exist. There's nothing wrong with looking to a media figure as someone who appeals to you because of how relatable they are. There's nothing wrong with a celebrity or comfort character or even a media figure boosting your mood with their online presence. It's also great to make friends based on that shared appreciation of that person, and to remember that you don't always know this person that you're admiring. Also, a lot of people pointed out video essay made by YouTuber Shannon Strucci, known as Strucci Movies, or Strucci. They began releasing a serialized video essay, Fake Friends, and it has a runtime of about 2 hours, but it walks through examples of parasocial relationships. I'm also going to watch it. I didn't get to watch it yet. That's it. If you can hear any of the background noise, I'm sorry, I can't control that. I will see you in the next video. Again, all my sources will be linked down below. Thank you for 65 subscribers. One of my videos has like 440 views. That's nuts. I'll see you all in the next video. Buy the new bamboo earrings. I don't know if she's in stock. Don't quote me on that. Peace out.